Well, hello to my Sunday school friends. It is really nice to see you again. I hope that you are well. I hope you're enjoying your summer and that you're continuing to learn, that you're getting strong, that you're getting smart. That would all be very good, wouldn't it? All right, so we are talking still about King David, and this is a story about the end of David's life. So David had become a very old man. He'd become very powerful. You know, he'd made a lot of big mistakes, but he'd also done a lot of things really right. And at the end of his life, it was very hard for him to even get out of bed anymore. He was cold all of the time, and he was in bed most of the time. And one of his sons, a young man named Adonijah, decided that he wanted to be king instead of his dad. Remember, we had that horrible story about how Absalom had decided that. Adonijah at least waited until David was very, very old and very, very weak. But Adonijah, I don't know if he knew that God had chosen Solomon to be the next king and not him. I don't know if he was going to try to make it happen. I don't know. But one day, Adonijah put together a big feast for all of his friends, and he had a bunch of his father's soldiers, and he had Joab, who was the commander of David's army, and he had the high priest show up out there, and he put on this huge feast outside the walls of Jerusalem. And the plan was that after the end of the feast, that the high priest and Joab and all of the guests would anoint Adonijah as king and declare him the next king of Israel. So they're all out having this party, and they're making a lot of noise, and there's a lot of happiness and a lot of silliness. And Nathan the prophet hears about it, and Nathan goes to Bathsheba and says to her, "Hey, you know what's going on?" She says, "No." He says, right now Adonijah is having a party, and at the end of the party, he's going to have himself declared king. I thought that the deal between you and David was that your son Solomon would be king. You better go talk to David. So Bathsheba goes and she talks to David, and she says, this is going on. Adonijah is going to make himself king. Didn't you promise it'd be Solomon? David said, "Yes, I promised it was going to be Solomon, and I will make that happen." And while they're talking, Nathan the prophet comes into David, and he says, this is big. Adonijah really is trying to make himself king. And David says to him, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take Solomon, my son. I want you to dress him up in my robe. I want you to put him on my mule. I want you to have the priests lead the mule through the streets of Jerusalem. I want the trumpets to blow. I want everyone to say, 'God save King Solomon.' And then I want you to bring him back to the palace and have him sit on my throne." And that's exactly what Nathan and the other priests did. And the people saw that Solomon was going to be the next king, that he had the blessing of his father David. The people rejoiced. They shouted in the streets. They danced. They capered. It was really a beautiful, beautiful time. And the noise of that got to the people having the party. Joab, the commander of David's army, thought there was an attack in Jerusalem, and because he was a good and faithful soldier, he went running back into Jerusalem to find out what was going on. And when he got there, he found out that Solomon had been made the new king. A messenger was sent right away out to the party, "Hey, Solomon's the new king." The people out there were terrified. They thought that Solomon's first thing as king would be to kill all of them because they tried to make Adonijah king, so they all ran away. Adonijah was scared out of his mind, so he actually ran to the temple and he held onto the altar of God, saying that Solomon won't come and kill me here. Maybe Solomon would be really mad at me. And so when Solomon found out that his brother Adonijah was there, he sent for Adonijah to come to him. And he said, "If Adonijah will do what is right, he won't have any problem with me at all." So Adonijah came and bowed down before King Solomon, and Solomon told him, "Just do what's right, and you and I are not going to have a problem. Go home." Now, as it turns out, Adonijah didn't do what was right. He kept trying to rebel, and it didn't end very well for him. Solomon had to deal with him. But Solomon at least offered him peace. If you do right, there won't be any problem. And so Solomon took over the ruling of Israel. Now, David still hadn't died, of course, so David talked to Solomon and told him, listen, it's really important that you honor the laws of God. It's really important you do the stuff that God commands, that you don't do the stuff that God forbids. You're going to build this temple. We talked about that a little bit last week. You're going to build this temple. They talked about the temple, and there was this little bit of overlay where David was still alive and able to advise his son Solomon as he learned how to become the king of Israel. After a little bit, David died. And they brought him back to the home, to the place where he grew up, to Bethlehem, and they buried him there. And that city was called, from that time till now, the City of David. And there were promises from the prophets and in the Bible that the hope of the world, the Messiah, the King of Kings, would be born in the City of David. And many years later, that was Jesus, born in Bethlehem, come to set us all free. Isn't it a cool story? All right, we're going to pick up next week talking about Solomon as a young king, what he needed to do, what God wanted from him, and I am looking forward to talking about all that with you. But now we have reached the end of the stories of King David. You take care, stay healthy, be good. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.